My vision for the Department of Agriculture in the United States of America is to be the best run, the best managed, the best regarded agency in this country with the best reputation. Can we do that? I believe we can.
Good morning. Well, we on? We're not live yet. All right, now we're live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first USDA IT all hands meeting. So it's great to see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces for me as well. What we're going to do today is I'm going to help guide you through today's agenda. Again, my name is Francisco Salguero. I'm the Deputy CIO for USDA. So what today is going to be fully packed. We're going to go over all the work that we're doing with IT modernization, centers of excellence, and also give folks the opportunity to ask questions, and we'll give you responses on things that we're doing here at USDA. We're going to kick off the meeting, having the opening and welcoming remarks for the Federal IT Modernization Lead for the federal government. Keep in mind, our USDA Deputy Secretary, Stephen Skinsky.
Well, good morning, everybody. Great to see you, and it's great to see everyone here at this all-hands meeting for all of our IT professionals across the department. Gary was telling me this is actually the first time that all of the professionals across the IT community have gotten together here at USDA for this all kinds of all-hands meeting, and I think that really underscores what Secretary Perdue and I, along with all of you, want to achieve here at USDA, is that one USDA USD approach as we move forward. I want to say what a great pleasure it is for me to be here and to kick this meeting off. As you know, one of the key themes that Secretary Perdue brought here in his leadership as Secretary of Agriculture was to really try to transform how we at USDA do business. How can we be the most effective, efficient, and customer-focused department in the federal government? And to achieve that vision really depends on all of you that are out here. We have, as you know, a very ambitious plan, and we've embarked on that plan and are moving post-haste to try to implement that. As you know, we are working, early on we partnered with the White House Office of Innovation and with the General Services Administration to create these centers of excellence and really to try to transform the department in those 5 key areas of cloud adoption, IT infrastructure optimization, customer experience, service delivery analytics, and the contact centers. And I couldn't be happier than thrilled at the progress that I really think that we are making. That partnership that we have established has been an excellent one, where we are really relying on some of the great talent, not only from GSA and the Centers of Excellence, but also here at the department to create the teams to move forward to transform there. We have, as you know, entered into a couple of phases there. We have implemented through phase 1, where it was really doing the assessments of what do we need to accomplish in those 5 areas as we seek our goal of modernization. And now we're, of course, into phase 2, which is the actual implementation. As you know, we've offered and we have had out on the street the request for proposals, and we're going to be analyzing those here over the next month, and then awarding those contracts so we can move forward with the implementation of phase 2 so that we can actually deliver the results on the ground. The whole One USDA spirit that we have here at USDA, and I think is exemplified by the work that we're doing here on the IT modernization front, really is to, once again, change how we do business, change how we can deliver our programs to the customers that are in the field, change how we can increase the efficiency for our fellow employees, and change how we can make our programs more effective, more results-driven, and more outcome-based. All of that, of course, it also starts by working with folks from the outside in rather than the inside out. It starts with working with our customers, identifying what are their needs, what are their expectations as we design our programs and infrastructure, rather than designing and starting it out to say, you know, from the inside out to say, I think this will be what will work best, and then hoping that it delivers that result. I think all of us, and I want to thank all of you for your work that you have done to really begin this journey with us and to really help us achieve that IT transformation that we are embarked on here at the Department of Agriculture. It is not a, we're sprinting, but it is not going to be just a 100-yard dash, because we recognize that this is a long race, but we're also very, very smart and very dedicated about the need to get underway. I have to tell you that Secretary Perdue and I couldn't be prouder of the work that you are doing. The work that you are doing to make sure that we are transforming our IT systems so that they do serve our customers, so that we can effectively manage and that we can deliver the program results for our customers that they expect and they need from all of us here. I want to thank you for the work that you do, and I look forward to participating with you on the rest of that journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hiskey, for those opening remarks. And so for our next speaker, I'd like to introduce our Deputy Assistant Secretary. Can you hear me now? All right. I'll stand closer. For those that know me, I have a terrible voice. So I'd like to introduce our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Administration, Mr. Don Bice.
Great. Good morning, everyone. So what I'd start with is first by saying that none of what you all have accomplished so far through this IT modernization effort can't happen without the leadership of the Secretary and the Deputy Secretary. Just so you all know, they've come in and they have made IT in particular one of their signature desires to make improvements in the department. And not just for people who are external, it really focuses on the people who are in this room, and it focuses on all of the USDA employees. You've got a champion of information technology in the Secretary and the Deputy. So I want to say thank you to the Deputy Secretary for what he's done so far in leading the effort across the government and certainly here in the department. The other thing I want to just tell The other thing I want to do is just talk about some of the things we've achieved in this past year, in this past 6 months even. The Deputy mentioned the Centers of Excellence and the work that those folks have been doing and what they've been able to do with the assessments and getting things on the street to start actually implementing some of the ideas that they've put forth and that we've developed with them. But we've done a lot of work too. You know, in terms of data centers, we've exceeded the data center closure number that we set out as a target. Remember, we said we were going to close 39 data centers. I think we've already done 29 or something of that nature. So we have exceeded the target that we set for ourselves. We've saved tens of millions of dollars in cost avoidance by closing those data centers. So we've done some really important things that make it possible not to reduce the cost of doing IT, but to make sure that the investments we're making in IT are directed towards new modernization efforts and not just maintaining our existing infrastructure, which really is the key to continuing to make improvements in the department. We need to start getting rid of the old systems and focusing on the new systems, and you are the people who will do that. So I want to thank you for what you've done in the data center space. I also want to tell you, just this morning, the Secretary had a special sub-cabinet meeting with the undersecretaries and did a demonstration of the dashboards that have been worked on, the data analytics work that you as an IT community and the COEs and the CIO's office have put together of the information on the administrative side. I can tell you, I've been in the department for 30 years. We have not had the kind of data available to make decisions that we have right now. And we have only been doing this for the past year and really maybe just 9 months. So I want to tell you that we are changing the way we manage this department, and it's a way that will manage the department in a better way to be more efficient and be more effective and to look at the information that we have in front of us to make better decisions. So I want to applaud the people in this room who've contributed to that, because it's going to be an important thing as we move forward, because we can't keep doing business the way we've done business for the past 150 years in the future, because our customers need and demand more information and better information, and our decision makers need and demand more information and better information. I guess the other thing I'd say is that we as a community, led by Gary and his team and CIO and your assistant CIOs and you, have also really made an achievement. You know, I can tell you this is the first meeting of an IT community here in the department, and it's not going to be the last. And it's an important step, because all of you are working together to solve the problems that we have as a department to deliver our programs in that more efficient, effective way. So I want to make sure all of you are talking to each other, know each other, and build that community, because through that community, that's how we're going to make improvements in the business that we deliver. So I just want to applaud you for being here. I want to applaud you for the work you've done. So with that, thank you.
Hopefully you can hear me now. No? Okay. Is that better? Okay. He's going to have to raise the mic because he's taller than I am. So thank you, Mr. Bice, for the good words and actually talk about some of the accomplishments. And so it's important to keep in mind that even if you're not directly on one of those initiatives, centers of excellence, and or projects that we're doing for IT modernization, the work that you do truly supports it, because without you doing the day-to-day and operations and maintenance that we need, we couldn't do this modernization effort that we're doing forward. So up next, I'd like to introduce our USDA Chief Information Officer, Mr. Gary Washington.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, good morning, everybody. It was a little short, I guess. First, I really would like to thank everybody for coming out, and I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I want to thank the secretary, the deputy secretary, and I want to thank Don for allowing me to have the privilege of being the chief information officer here at the Department of Agriculture. And I'm extremely proud to stand before you and echo many of the sentiments that the Deputy Secretary, Sinsky, and the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Administration, Don Bice, have echoed this morning. We deserve the reputation to being the lighthouse agency for IT modernization across the federal government. Just listening to Don speak about the few IT modernization accomplishments we have achieved, and I'm very proud to be able to lead IT and to work with each and every one of you. In December, the Deputy Secretary sent out a message talking about the new operating model for USDA, and it's a model that enables quick decision-making, collaboration, and communication across all of the mission areas. Like Don said, we simply can't do business the way we've been doing business the last 150 years. And I think the new operating model will allow us to bring creative and innovative ideas and solutions to USDA to help modernize our IT systems and bring value to our business partners. As Secretary Perdue announced in September, USDA has opportunities to improve leadership alignment across USDA. And in the IT community, one of the examples is we had 22 CIOs. Now we have 1 CIO and 8 mission area assistant CIOs. And quite frankly, I think we have the best group of assistant CIOs in the federal government, and they're doing an outstanding job. A shift in responsibilities for these roles in the new operating model will allow the assistant CIOs to really focus on delivering mission IT to the mission areas so we can provide value and optimize the amount of investment that we're making in our IT systems. So we freed them up to do that and to manage and provide value to their mission areas. As I wrote in our August IT modernization newsletter, we need to be customer obsessed and customer centric and customer focused. These are the statements that we clearly articulated in information. That's what information technology modernization is all about. I'm just not talking about our external customers, but our internal customers as well. IT is the lifeblood of our organization. Every time somebody comes to work, they turn on their computer. And nobody asks any questions about what goes on behind that, but all they know is that on a daily basis it works. And that's because of all of you. So you all deserve a round of applause for what you do every day. We knew when we launched these initiatives that we valued and needed our employee input. As invitations were sent out to the USDA enterprise asking for volunteers for a 2-year service, we took 7 people from 5 mission areas, and they've been detailed to the Office of American Innovation Centers of Excellence. So those 7 people are here today, and as I call your name, I want you to stand up and be recognized. So Scott Fink of the Agricultural Research Service. Teresa Gallagher of the Forest Service. Those 2 are working on our cloud adoption and infrastructure optimization centers of excellence. Tamika Hamlin of the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service. She's a co-lead of the Customer Experience Center of Excellence. Sadia Surrendon from the Farm Service Agency, and Dana Watts of the Forest Service. They're not here today. They're remote, but they're working with the Contact Center of Excellence. Chris Alvarez of the Food Safety Inspection Service. He's working with Ted on the digital services analytics. IT Modernization's biggest impact is on the personnel and the customers who it affects. Being transparent and frequent and having open communication is critical to our success. So employees and customers want to know what changes are coming and how it will impact them. So I can assure you that we're going to communicate loud and often, and we welcome any input anybody may have. Our communication team has done an excellent job of making sure that we are communicating clear and often. We recently converted the OCIO newsletter and morphed it into the IT Modernization newsletter. So that reaches 4,000 plus employees, and we welcome your feedback. Any questions that you may have or suggestions, we want to know what you're thinking and any suggestions that you may have. So change is inevitable, and it's a constant part of our lives, especially being an IT professional. So change management is even harder than everyone knows, and everybody has different expectations about what that change should be. So you can help us manage the change by speaking up to us and letting us know what your thoughts are. Keep your questions coming to the OCIO feedback box and communicate with your peers and supervisors. Become part of our team, and we want everybody to be involved and make this an inclusive process. And with that, I want to turn this back over to Francisco, but I want to tell you this. We cannot do this without we need everybody in this room to be a part of the team. So thank you.
Okay, been told to use the other mic. All right. So thank you, Gary. Appreciate the additional remarks on the IT modernization and centers of excellence. So our next speaker, she's actually the GSA, I got to read the whole title because it's a mouthful, Technology Transformation Service Director. And so she's been a great partner with us in helping us move forward with IT modernization and these centers of excellence. Joanne Collins-Smee.
Should I use this? Yes? Okay. So first of all, Gary, thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm honored to be here. And Deputy Secretary Sinsky and Don, I'm so pleased to be here. I joined the government about a year ago from the private sector, and my first role, sorry, I'm doing the Francisco. My role was to come in and do what I did in the private sector in the government, to do large-scale IT transformation. And there was a lot of discussion about which agency we would start in. And I feel so blessed that that agency is USDA. We have a great team. Our leaders, many of them are over here that are going to be part of the discussions later on. But the key thing was to be able to come into an agency with the leadership and vision that Secretary Perdue and your leadership that we just heard from has related to technology. As we know, tech is in the middle of everything. And to have a team that understands that we're going to have to do things differently to be able to get the modernization required, and that there's going to be a level of introspection and study and outcomes to be able to achieve those results, that's amazing. When I worked in the private sector, you'd work with clients for a month or so and you'd kind of get a view of where it was going to go. Well, my time at USDA for the last 10 months or so, this team, the sky's the limit. All of you, I think, are so lucky to be part of IT working for USDA because you're doing great things on behalf of the American public. I am so keen to be able to be associated with you all, and I'm really anxious to see where it is that life takes USDA, because I think you're a symbol today for IT modernization for the government, and if you look, 3-4 years out, you can be a symbol for the world about what can be achieved with single-minded co-creation and openness to new ideas and to doing things differently. So you have incredible leadership. This team is so talented that you have here today. And I just am so pleased to have been part of this process. So I'm going to keep watching, and I hope to stay very close to you all as you're doing great work on behalf of the American people. So many of our colleagues are going to come up and talk about the great work that you all are doing. When I joined the USDA team, you all had a ton of great plans, and I feel our COE teams just came in and joined you where you were, and we were able to work effectively together. So that whole idea of an open leadership and that we're able to co-create and go even further quicker is the goal of the whole IT modernization work. So I wanted to thank you all for being so open and welcoming with the COE teams, and I know everyone is going to do even greater things in the future. So thank you for your support. We all appreciate it.
Thank you, Joanne. So up next, we have the OCIO IT Modernization Executive Director. And so her role really is to bring all these efforts that we're doing, not just COEs, the Centers of Excellence, but also the IT modernization we're doing throughout USDA. So with that, to Laura Dean.
Thank you. So real quickly, before I get started with my brief remarks, I just want to mention that we also had one more person who serves on one of our COEs, and that is Morris Johnson. Morris Johnson serves on the infrastructure COE, and he is from GIPSA and the combined AMS. So let's give him a hand. So good morning. So this is an exciting morning. This morning, you've had an opportunity to hear from the Deputy Secretary as he shared his vision, as well as the Secretary's vision on IT modernization here at the department. In addition to that, you've heard our speakers as they have shared with you some of the accomplishments throughout Phase 1, as well as provided you a brief overview of the partnership between USDA, the White House Office of Innovation, and GSA. And we're really excited about that partnership. So in a few moments, you're going to hear from both our USDA leads as well as our GSA leads as they talk to you, give you a little more information on some of the many more accomplishments that we have had throughout Phase 1, as well as give us a roadmap for Phase 2. So before we get started, I would like to give you just a brief overview of a new organization that we're getting ready to stand up here at USDA in OCIO. So as we said before, we went through Phase 1, and in Phase 1, we recognized that one of the key components to being really successful in Phase 2 is to establish a BMO, Business Modernization Office. Now, this office is critical to the success of Phase 2 because what this office does is it really just evolves the COE Project Management Office. Now, the BOM will include traditional project management activities, as well as provide oversight and direct organizational change and strategic alignment across all of the COEs. So we're really excited about it. All right, can we go to the next slide, please? All right, so as I said before, the BMO is really critical to this next phase. And so what the BMO is going to do is it's going to help us continue our momentum, and it's going to provide a structure for some new endeavors. It will also provide an opportunity for us to build a community of practice for innovation, and you've heard that term throughout this morning, a community of practice, so we really want to get that established, as well as it will help us to continue any of our customer service improvement efforts. So as you can see on the slides, we see this happening in 3 different stages. The first is the short-term phase, and during that phase, it will start at the very beginning of Phase 2, which is, as the Deputy Secretary mentioned, starting now. So we hope to, in the next 6 months, stand up a BMO in the short term, which will concentrate on these specific bullets here: the strategic alignment, contracts delivery, stakeholder engagement, organizational management, and risk mitigation. Now, during this phase, we will look at how the organization should be structured and some of the needs of the organization. We will then transition to a permanent BMO for the department. And that permanent BMO is going to continue all IT modernization efforts, as well as promote any strategic vision that the Secretary's office has for moving IT forward, as well as any transformational change across USDA IT initiatives. Next slide, please. So we see a lot of opportunity in this. As we said, this is the first time that this has ever been done. This is the first time we have ever had a transformation effort this large in IT. And so we see this as an opportunity for us to really establish some governance. Not only establish some governance, but also for us to focus on organizational change, process improvement, project management, customer-centric solutions, and human-centered design. So some of the things that we think that any BMO that you stand up will need some specific certifications as well as some specific skills. And some of the certifications include, of course, PMP, Lean Six Sigma certification, FAC-PM, FAC-Core, planning, contracts management, performance matrix design, and of course, organizational change. And these are some of the skills, as I said before, that any BMO would need, and so these are some of the things that we're going to be looking at. In addition to that, we think that the strengths of this organization and the talents of this organization, of course, will include strategic thinking, analytical skills, as well as creativity and great communication skills. So that is a quick overview of the BMO. As I said before, we are in the process of trying to determine how this will be established. And so over the course of the next few months, you will receive additional information, so stay tuned. So thank you all for all that you do and all the assistance that you are providing as we move forward with modernizing USDA and improving the way that we operate. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. So okay. Sorry, changing the agenda a little bit, so I just didn't catch up. All right, so for our next is we're going to start to go over the Centers of Excellence and IT modernization specifically. So first up, we have Darren Ash, the Assistant CIO for FPAC, and Simca Bogan. I'm not going to butcher her. The other last name. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. And no, I'm not Joe Doyle. Good morning. Again, I'm Darren Ash, the Assistant CIO for the Farm Production and Conservation Mission Area. I'm here with my partner in crime, Simca Bogan of GSA, and she's my co-lead on the CX COE. And I think as we get into the slides, I think it's important to understand the context, or really the why. Why are we doing this? The first thing about the FPAC mission area is we have approximately 22,000 employees across 3,100 locations across the United States. We serve farmers, ranchers, private foresters, and we cover a large number of programs ranging from crop insurance to conservation practices to loans to disaster programs, a large swath of programs that we use to support our customers across the country. As our customers interact with us, and our employees, to Gary's point, we have two different types of customers we think about, farmers, ranchers, and foresters, as well as our employees. Our customers are obligated to provide us information to enroll for a program, to report crop plantings, et cetera. And much of this, a good deal of this, is done face-to-face, either in a county office, service center, or in the field. We also know our field staff does an outstanding job of helping our customers. We know that, and it's been proven year in and year out. We also have systems that work, deliver the loan programs, make payments, and enable program enrollment. We also have some self-service, particularly in NRCS, that enables our customers to be able to interact with us and provide us information to be able to support their interactions. But we also know that we need to significantly increase self-service. We need to make it easier for our customers, whether they're our employees or farmers, to be able to interact with us and do business with us. We also know that we must modernize too. But we also know ultimately we need to reduce the burden for our employees and our customers in how they do their job and how they work with us. That's the bottom line. and this is how we do that. This is where the COEs come in. We had ideas about what we think we can do. We've identified them, we've prioritized them, we define requirements, but we also need to ask. And that's really where the COE came in terms of conducting about 100 interviews across 6 states. We generated a tremendous number of ideas, thoughts, opinions that are going to help us, prioritize and really refine what is it we need to do to best serve our customers. Cynthia, you want to elaborate, please?
Thank you, Darren. Hello, everyone. So just to, next slide. Let me see. Yes, thank you. It's not very clear here, but basically one of the things that we try to infuse with our Customer Experience Center of Excellence and our partnership with USDA is we took a closer look at some of the ideas that were coming out of what should we put on farmers.gov. How can we better help our employees? How can we better help our citizens access these loan services that we so very much offer on a day-to-day basis? And how can we make that easier, not just for our employees, but also, give customers things that they expect, things that they're used to when they get loans from industry, and give them that similar great experience. So one of the things that we did is we did travel across those 6 states. We used techniques. Our team has a lot of customer experience, research, analytics, but also human-centered design approaches to how we deliver and approach this type of research. And so with all of the interviews that we conducted, we also conducted a lot of workshops. So within this building, within some of the service center offices that we went across the country traveling to, we really talked to a mix of people. So a mixture of IT folks here at USDA, but we also really mixed it with industry, with the business side of the house. So we really work to co-create different solutioning ideas. And with that, we created a journey map. And what the journey map really depicts is what your customers, but also what your employees are thinking, feeling, and doing. And so I think you'll get a copy of these slides later so it can be a little bit more clear. But we really took all of the different phases from beginning to end of what a customer would go through when thinking about a loan, going through accessing and applying for the loan all the way through the end of the journey where they're finished paying off the loan. And what does that experience look like? Where are their pain points along the way? So that's the type of information that we baseline for everyone and visualize for everyone. We're now at a stage with farmers.gov where we're working with their development teams and co-creating and doing sprint planning together. And so over the course of the next several months, we're going to be developing different products. So you're going to see different products pop up on farmers.gov, but it is all data-driven. It's all going to be customer-focused, and that is really, the goal and the intent of this type of research, and marrying that with the IT community. Part of some of the other work that we've also been partnering with USDA is around voice of the customer. So voice of the customer is a little bit of a different spin in how you look at, what customers are saying about your programs, about your services, about your website, and kind of bringing that all together in one space so you can really take a deep dive and analyze that. So we've been working very closely with FPAC, also working closely with FPAC's Customer Experience Office, and also our department Customer Experience Office led by Joe Doyle. And part of our analysis is what are all of the different channels that customers communicate with you today to access FPAC, to access your employees, to ask questions, and how are you using that? What are the mechanisms behind it? Not just the technology, but with that rich data and information that you have from customers, is it getting to the right people? Is it getting into the right hands? Are there other ways that this information should be delivered, or are there other mechanisms of where that data should be shared with one another? So we're really doing a deep dive analysis of that and making recommendations. All right, next slide, please. So for the roadmap for next year for phase 2, we're looking at really amping up the team that we had established for this phase 1 work. So we're looking at a talent team that we can put together strategically within the CIO, and we're calling it the Digital Service Support Team. And what this team would be able to offer throughout USDA is, if parts of USDA have different ideas for IT modernization efforts. Maybe they want to streamline their 500 websites down to 10, or they want to, build a portal, or they have all of these great ideas about how to serve their customers better. This team would work with them initially to, make sure that they're using a human-centered design approach to how they're working, and marry that with the agile development workflow that you all are, using today. And so this is the type of practice that is very common in industry, and that's something that we really want to bring to the table and really make sure it's more of a norm than a unique capability, and really bring it and offer it up and start offering it to USDA on different projects and initiatives. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, I did want to welcome Mia Jordan. She's the ACIO for Rural Development, and also Megan Daly leading our contact center COE for GSA.
Thank you, Simca. Good morning, everyone. As Simca stated, I'm the Rural Development Assistant CIO and also a co-sponsor and advisor to the Center of Excellence that's focused on contact centers, specifically external-facing call centers, those call centers that specifically are focused on the American citizen. This is a really huge and different aspect of how we're going to modernize USDA. Rural Development, for those of you all that don't know, have a call center specifically focused on single-family housing direct loans. We take in about 2 million calls a year. And so I'm really excited about the progress that this team has made over the course of the last several months. And with that, I'll turn it over to Megan so that she can share our progress.
Thanks, Mia. It's been a real privilege working here with USDA, with all of you passionate folks here, and also with Mia, so I'm glad to be here. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so when we first arrived back in, I guess, February at this point, we asked how many external-facing contact centers are here at USDA. So we did extensive research, and we also did a few surveys to find out how many external-facing contact centers are here. And through our research, you really can't see these slides too close right now, but you'll get these slides after. But we identified over 3,200 number of different offices and in-person centers that folks can go in and get a question answered. We then whittled it down to, our research indicated 84 different phone numbers that we found online of numbers that people can contact to get their questions answered. We then whittled that further based on the survey results that we received to 59 different phone numbers associated with external-facing contact centers here at USDA. And then that really identified 24 external-facing contact centers. That's at this point, it's the number that we think that it's here. We also identified 4 hybrid, both external and internal-facing contact centers. So those are contact centers that answer inquiries from the public, but also internal customers. And we're still, talking to folks and doing some deep dive interviews just to make sure that those are the final numbers. So next slide. So our phase 2 next work, based on all of our research and all of the interviews that we've done, we've identified 4 different things we want to focus on in phase 2. The first one being, we've noticed that there's a fragmented customer experience where folks can get different answers depending on the channel that they contact USDA at. So we've said we really need that foundational centralized knowledge management solution. So that's the first thing we want to tackle. That way folks can get that same answer regardless of the channel that they contact USDA. And the ultimate goal of that is also to enable USDA to track what customers are calling about, what that volume is, and the complexity of their questions, regardless of how they access their access point to USDA. The next piece being, we want to provide that one central phone number for folks to call to get their answer, to get their question answered. So we want to stand up a front door contact center, and this will be staffed by internal USDA employees, but the first year, this phase 2 vendor will help USDA stand that front door contact center up, and then hand it off to USDA after that first year. And this centralized front door contact center will handle tier 0, tier 1 questions, and then ultimately hand it off to those tier 2, tier 3 experts within USDA. And part of all this, we know this is going to involve, extensive organizational change management. So that's that third piece that we want the phase 2 vendor to help us with. And lastly, we really want to make sure that innovation is incorporated into all of the work that we do. So we want to make sure that we're requiring that phase 2 vendor to do at least 2 different emerging technology pilots, which could include a virtual intelligent tool or robotic process automation. And we want to just really expand upon some of the work that the CFO is already doing in that area around RPA. So that could be a pilot that is explored by that phase 2 vendor. Okay, next slide. So lastly, we really want to make sure that USDA can then streamline and integrate all of its communication channels to provide that consistent customer experience, regardless of how or where that customer interacts with USDA. So we want to make sure that we deliver a consistent and personalized customer experience by really understanding what that customer needs, by looking at continual process improvement and ongoing analysis of that data and feedback that's coming in. We want to reduce the cost of contact center services by really providing that shared services model and managing contact centers as an enterprise-wide operation. So we can optimize workforce management, and then also leveraging, evolving, and expanding existing USDA technology to really create that single omni-channel platform. And this really will just create greater efficiencies and really allow the USDA folks to really focus on the really high-value work by standing up this front door contact center and this centralized knowledge management solution. Thank you. So I'm going to hand it off to Ted Kauk, the Chief of Staff for the CIO office, and Chris Alvarez, the detailee from FSIS.
Thanks, Megan. Good morning, everybody. We're here to talk to you about the Data Analytics and Executive Dashboard project. So I want to go back to the running theme of the day, which is the Secretary's vision for an organization that is data-driven, fact-based, and customer-focused. That's really what we feel is a key, this project is a key plank in achieving that strategy. So I've been working side by side with Tom Halloran, who could not be here today from GSA, but also with Chris Alvarez, who again was one of our detailees from the missionaries in FSIS, and it's been great to have both of them as a partner as we've worked on these efforts. So what's the purpose of this objective, of this particular initiative? It has 3 major portions of the initiative. The first one is to think really critically about what it is that we're measuring. When we think about our customer-focused outcomes, we want to make sure that we're measuring the right things, we have a right setup, we're solving the right problems before we go ahead and achieve those objectives. The second one is to leverage the existing information that we already have. USDA has a tremendous amount of information. Every time somebody makes a help desk request, every time somebody goes on travel, every time somebody gets a loan from USDA, that information has tremendous value for us to be able to make better decisions about how we manage our organization. But when that information is trapped in the systems where they're recorded, that information is unavailable and does not deliver the value that it could. So we want to address that. And then finally, we want to implement enterprise analytics infrastructure and enterprise advanced analytics that are aligned with USDA's strategic plan. So I want to talk a little bit about that second one, which is leveraging the information we already have. Over the course of FY18 and 19, one of the 2 agency priority goals is the Chief Executive Officer Dashboard Project. I know it's a little bit difficult to read up here, so what we're focused on is answering the questions with the Chief Executive Officers at the department. What kinds of questions do they have? what kind of information do they need, what keeps them up at night. As we did these interviews over the course of this year, what we found was a lot of the information that they need to make the decisions that matter to them and to the performance of their organization is information they don't have access to. So that's what we want to change. So I'm going to give you a quick taste of that as we just play a quick video that shows you the objectives of this project that's called the Chief Executive Officer Dashboard Project.
Every day, the United States Department of Agriculture makes key decisions to directly support the success, health, and well-being of millions of Americans. In an effort to deliver an improved customer experience, the Chief Executive Officers of the department have come together to stand up the CXO Dashboards Project, a project that uses today's new digital technologies to collect and leverage huge amounts of data at minimal cost. The CXO Dashboards will work to empower leaders to assess goals, strategies, and performance metrics. By refining policies and procedures to focus on channels that are preferred by customers, USDA will ensure the greatest return on investment, whether that be crops grown, dollars saved, or families fed. Through better use of data and analytics, the CXO Dashboards will help USDA do right and feed everyone.
So we're going to give you a little picture of what we've been working on in regard to that particular project. There's been a lot of work going on over the last 2 quarters, quarter 2 and quarter 3. We developed the IT dashboard, and we developed dashboards on HR and finance. So we're going to walk you through that. In the meantime, in quarter 4, the teams are working to develop additional dashboards in the areas of property, procurement, fleet, operations, and homeland security. And they're actually also building underlying connections, automated connections between the systems, over a dozen systems at USDA. So by the end of FY18, we will have an automated dashboard capability for real-time information across USDA. So as we just take a quick preview of the dashboards, on the left-hand side of the dashboard, you would have USDA's strategic goals. If you dig into that side of the dashboard, if we click and move to the next slide, you can actually see the key performance indicators and objectives for the department. And in this case, we're looking at the OCIO landing page. Each of those dashboards will have a landing page where key information across the department is available for executives. Going on the next slide. This particular dashboard shows USDA's attrition, so we can manage our workforce. It enables executives to go in and look at the top level metrics and actually use filtering, and at an instant find the information that they need to make decisions. We have over 50 dashboards we've developed to date, and what I want to do now is turn it over to Chris Alvarez, who's going to talk a little bit about the program side dashboards that they're working on with the COEs.
Thank you, Ted. So as we mentioned already, the priorities that the Secretary has laid out are focused on being data-driven and customer-focused. And that has been a lot of the work that the data analytics COE had kept in its mind as it's worked towards a number of different projects and engagements throughout USDA. We've been working at the department level and through all the mission areas to talk about and assess the current state of analytics. What are the needs and challenges? What are some of the obstacles that different mission areas are facing? Whether it's around access to data, whether it's around analytics, capacity, tools, measurement, understanding outcomes of programs. We've covered really a pretty wide range of projects and potential activities. That's generated, I think, a fairly good pipeline of work that we can continue into phase 2, but I'll talk about some that we have really started to work on in this current phase as well. Although phase 1 was really meant to be an assessment phase, it was pretty obvious that there was a lot of things that we could get started on really quickly and start to deliver and start to show some value and some promise. Working with Joe Doyle's Office of Customer Experience, working with some of the other COEs, the Contact Center and the Customer Experience COEs, we've been working to help put in place a process to assess and to respond to feedback that's coming in through the Tell Sunny feedback channel. That's a thing that's been recently stood up on the USDA homepage. We get comments not just from USDA employees, but from all over, all different types of customers that work with USDA or interact with USDA. And we've been working with those groups to help bring in that information, assess how it needs to be responded to, do analytics. We've created a dashboard to show what those comments are about, what agencies they're in reference to, where they're coming in from across the country, looking for hot topics, trends. So that's been a really, I think, interesting project to show how we can take some of that feedback and act on it and have awareness of it. We want to move forward with that in phase 2 to do even more, to integrate multiple feedback channels. This isn't the only, Telsani isn't the only way we get feedback. Every agency, every mission area has some form of getting feedback from customers. And we want to strengthen that. We want to add additional channels. We want to be more proactive in eliciting that feedback, but also be able to integrate that and see in its entirety what kind of feedback we're getting from USDA. In addition to that, we've been working with different areas on performance measures. One mission area in particular engaged with us to help really develop some KPIs, key performance indicators, that really would help them communicate how their programs and how their agencies are contributing towards agency objectives in this USDA strategic plan. We worked with them and we worked with some partners at GSA to do some workshops and brainstorming, came up with a proposal that was brought to the Deputy Secretary and was really well received. So much so that two more mission areas are reaching out to us to do similar sorts of activities in phase 2. And so that's a really good opportunity to look at how we're measuring programs at a very high level, talking about the impact that we're having to our customers that rely on USDA. We've also been working on ways to bring data together from different sources, whether it's combining federal and state data to look at agency programs more holistically, to understand in a more complete way and in concert with those state partners how those programs are working. We've worked on projects to look at how we're running some of our programs. Are there ways that we can improve some of the models that we apply to maybe how we're pricing certain programs, or how we're allocating resources, or how we're making decisions about where to direct some of our resources. So getting into some of those modeling types of projects, predictive analytics, even machine learning, big data types of projects, we see those as coming down the pipeline in phase 2 as well. So that's a really quick overview. I just want to say that all of those things are going to help us move forward. We want to use that information, but we also want to foster a community of practice. So as we do some of these things and we free up the time it takes to generate reports, the time it takes to process the more routine activities, we want to see that time being used to do more analytics, assess that data, understand that data, act on those issues, and help those mission areas resolve them. And I see all of us here today as being part of that, and we're here to help build that community through resources, through cross-training, through communities of practice, and that's a key element of phase 2 as well. So thank you for listening. I think we are going to transition to our next speakers. I want to introduce Ed Rayaltz and Jay Huey, who are going to talk about our cloud adoption initiative.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Ed Rayaltz, and this is Mr. Jay Huey. One of the most talented and brightest individuals in the federal government. Glad to have him on our team. So we're going to talk about cloud adoption today. Before we do that, I'd also like to mention and thank Ms. Kim Jackson from FNS. Thank you, Kim. She is our mission area executive sponsor and has been very great in having her as a partner in this initiative, and we appreciate her help. So the cloud adoption COE is what we call a foundational COE, along with infrastructure optimization. It's the COEs, these two COEs are the foundation upon which all the other COEs will build their services and deliver their capabilities. So I guess with that, we'd like to start with I guess there's the slides up here that talk about the CPS, platform services, cloud platform services. So there's three things that I want to talk about before I give it over to Jay, and that's the first one. This is an organization that we're standing up inside of OCIO that will allow the department to leverage best practices for cloud. So we have this organization, it's really a group that stood up under EAS in Fort Collins. Chris North is the lead on that. We've also got Terry Gallagher that's helping out with that with the Forest Service. Appreciate your help there, Terry. Then we also have a cloud broker office underneath the CPS. That's headed up by Chad Bixby. We also have the Digital Services Center that provides the SaaS offerings. That's headed up by Steve Peterson here in DC. And then we also have a technical support group that provides all the different support activities that you can imagine, whether it's NetBond, whether it's standing up the Microsoft or the AWS cloud native capabilities that we're all seeking to achieve. So we also have the next part of call it a cloud smart approach, is leveraging landing zones that leverage both commercial, both hybrid, and both on-prem capabilities. So in these landing zones, we have IaaS offerings, which is infrastructure as a service. We have PaaS offerings, which is platform as a service. And we have the SaaS offerings, which is all the different things that the Digital Services Center is providing today, such as Salesforce, such as Microsoft Dynamics, and ServiceNow. So with these landing zones, we're able to offer all the different agencies, all the different mission areas, a variety of different capabilities based upon their application portfolio. It's based upon their workload characteristics, and it's really based upon their cloud readiness. So they can choose any one of the landing zones that we've provided for them. And the great thing about these landing zones is they're all FedRAMP certified and or they are ATO'd. So the agencies and the mission areas inherit all of the secure functionality of all the different landing zones. The last thing I want to talk about is we built a cloud portal. This is a portal that we've shown to the CIO Council. We are going to make it available to all the agencies and all the employees. But it is a portal where you can go to learn everything about cloud, whether it's our solutions. There's a question and answer page on there. There's challenges, opportunities. You could submit a challenge that you're currently having with cloud today, and we will research that and provide an answer back. But overall, it's just an awareness of what's going on in the cloud computing environment today for the department. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jay, and he's going to go into more of the details on app rationalization, FedRAMP capabilities, so on and so forth.
It's really tough to feel like you're batting cleanup even when you're in the middle of the order. I think you'll find from a lot of us that we've been really inspired and impressed from the leadership support, the talent across the agency. So I hope my voice echoes a lot of what you've heard so far, and I know you'll hear later on, right? When we started in February, someone handed me the Deputy Secretary's memo on IT modernization, and it spoke to that strengthening governance, creating the new operating model. And this may say more about me than the memo, but I was so inspired, right, to read that policy, to see the senior leadership and the commitment and the spirit that embodies. And I think you're seeing that today from Gary's comment around this is the start of that communication, so I hope it continues. So we talked about the DTLE program. What we've been doing with Scott, Terry, and some of the other, I'll call them like Morris, right, part of our team, even if they're in the infrastructure, is trying to build that holistic picture. I think a lot of times CIOs are seen as sort of command and control environments, but really what we're trying to do is coordinate and collaborate. And we heard that in the earlier comments, to create that application portfolio. So we've been meeting with areas like, I saw Darren before, right, Janet, Doug, to try and figure out what applications do they have in their portfolio, and frankly, what is it that they need. The diverse mission of USDA really requires a diverse cloud portfolio. Ed alluded to that when we talked about the landing zones. It's not one cloud. What we've seen in technology is that there's a need for email, there's a need for hosting, platform, and so forth. And what we want to do is to be that enabler for the mission areas. And so we've used the detail program to be kind of the translator for us, right? To better understand the mission areas so they can better communicate the technology's capabilities. And I think what you'll see in CPS is the continued growth of that kind of broker model, there to be a totally agnostic advisor. And I think that's a very powerful statement around cloud. For me, cloud is less about what you're buying and how you are buying it. You can absolutely buy cloud and check a box somewhere, but if you do it in a waterfall, kind of traditional monolithic purchase, it's really not going to help the agency transform, either from a cost perspective, the agility that the missions need, so forth, right? If it still takes 24 months to get some of this latest and greatest technology, we're still going to suffer the delays that got alluded to before in terms of delivering services to the people. And so what we want to try and do is transform not just the thing that you were looking at from a technology perspective, but the technique used to acquire it, right? So that it speaks to Ed's comments around being that broker, being able to share advice, create the collaboration syncs, transmit lessons learned across mission IT areas, right? Maybe somebody's done something in Salesforce that you have a question on. The CIO can be that convener and collaborator, and I think that's what we're increasingly seeing around cloud. How do you do an agile acquisition model? We think we have some best practices across government from other groups that Joanne gets to lead, and so we can share those bits of knowledge. I think the third piece is really around process. We can all solve kind of the point-in-time project demands, but the President's management agenda speaks to a generational transformation around IT modernization. And so that means we don't just need to be cloud first, we need to be modernization first and bake that into our processes. And we've done that working with Tacey's group, Brad, right? They've really been on the forefront of government championing this kind of iterative ATO development process. And we've just been there to bolster, to strengthen, and kind of advocate for them. And I think you'll increasingly see the expertise that's been done at leadership here at USDA being shared with other agencies as a best practice. And I'm so excited by that. To Joanne's point, right, the passion and enthusiasm was here for you all to be that lighthouse agency, which meant that we could kind of hit the ground running and just start to facilitate these things as opposed to kind of reinstantiating them. So I just want to close, right? I know traditionally this talk is around consolidation, and I hope that I've kind of convinced you that it's not. This is about that collaboration and cooperation. And on the back of your program, there happens to be one up here, right? There's this Helen Keller quote, "Alone we can do so much, together, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much," right? So to Ed's point, the others, join us, whether it's organizationally through a detailed program or just collaboratively in a community of practice, like Chris alluded to in the data center. I think that's the way in which we share the expertise that's so impressive across USDA. Dan mentioned before, right, just one of your USDA mission areas is more people than at GSA. We have some abilities as a convener, and I hope to create that for you all as well. Thank you very much.
So Mr. Dan Pomeroy is going to join us for infrastructure optimization. I also have the USDA lead for that. So Dan and I will cover, I'll give a broad overview and Dan will cover the details. So we've had some great success, really exciting success, as Mr. Bice previously announced in the Data Center Optimization Initiative, first and foremost. But infrastructure optimization is more than just data center consolidation. It also includes network consolidation as well. So we'll talk about that. From the OCIO lead team, I'd like to just mention Kim Jackson and Ernest Jones, who work on the DCOI side of the house, and they work with OMB as liaisons. And then we also have Victoria Turley, who works on data center migration planning. So those are the individuals that help on that side. And then for network consolidation, I'd like to mention John Donovan and Dan Crossan, both leading that effort. So again, the recent accomplishments, you've heard them. We've exceeded our goals for data center closures in FY18. We've also exceeded our goals for savings in FY18. So what that did is allowed OMB to relook at the scorecard, and they've increased our score from a D to a B, which is outstanding from a FATARA perspective. And so what's allowed us to do this? It's really the mission areas, it's really the agencies, all of you together are allowing us to exceed in this effort. And it is complex, it takes a lot of planning, and it takes a lot of diligence. Mr. Dan Pomeroy brings all of that to the table for us. He has a can-do attitude, and he's just simply tenacious. But I want to point out, before I turn the mic over to him, I'd like to point out one mission area and one agency specifically who's done recently a tremendous job, and that's the Forest Service. Under their leadership, Mr. Don Motter Randall, Ta, the whole team over at the Forest Service. They've just done an amazing job, and I'm just going to read just a couple of items here of what they've been able to accomplish, which really shines a bright light on the department. They are the ones that have helped us achieve the goals that Mr. Bice mentioned and what I just mentioned. And so what they've done is a concept called a virtual data center. And they've brought in their workload, they've closed down MCI, they've closed down Big Byte, and they've brought all of that workload into the enterprise data center in Kansas City at NITSE. And so not only have they increased their security posture tremendously, their virtualization percentage is now 90%. Their app rationalization process that they went through, over 500 apps down to about 165. Their cost savings is, like Mr. Bice said, in the multi-million-dollar area, tens of millions, and that's 6.1 annually recurring. But most of all, they don't have to worry about hardware anymore. They don't have to worry about buying it. They don't have to worry about procuring it, managing it. All of that is in a virtual data center in a cloud environment in the enterprise data center. So it's those partnerships. That's just one example. There are many more. I could go into a lot of them. But that's just one example of what helps us as a department lead in this area. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Dan, and he can go into the details.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate that a lot. It has been a great pleasure and honor to serve side by side with you folks in U.S. Department of Agriculture. Data center consolidation is probably not the sexiest, most interesting topic we could think about, but it's important. And it's been the executive branch's policy since 2010 to consolidate data centers. It was ensconced into law in FITARA in 2014, reaffirmed again by both the Office of American Innovation in 2017, as well as the FITARA Enhancement Act. So it's a very bipartisan issue, and we are endeavoring to make this happen collectively. That the Centers of Excellence have just been one part of a very large team. Most of these people that have made this a reality, some of them are here in the room, but we know that most of the folks that are doing the real work to achieve these goals are out in the regions across the United States. We talked about closing 21 of 37. We exceeded our goal. When I got here, the goal was close 18 and 18, and I was like, okay, I think we can do that. We'll probably be able to do that, and then we've already exceeded that before the end of the fiscal year, which has been marvelous. Saving $25.8 million is not inconsequential. Going from a D to a B on the GAO scorecard is a major accomplishment, and because of the way the data is reported, there's kind of a lag in it, so I have no reason to believe that an A is not well in sight. Jumping to the next slide real quick. It's already there. Sorry. The data center consolidation is not just good policy, it's good business. It makes sense. The economics of economies of scale are real. Economies of scale work. It works in energy savings with data center consolidation. It works with IT workload consolidation. And it's efficient. It's the right way to drive a business. And driving to enterprise infrastructure is a key evolutionary step towards moving to the cloud. Once we start moving towards a relationship with a service provider that's centralized at the enterprise level, jumping again to the cloud is a much easier hop than going straight to the cloud. And security improves, cybersecurity improves. The recent IG audits that have taken place on systems that have leveraged collective enterprise level controls have gotten better scores than those that did not. So the proof is in the data. It improves performance of those assets as well. We want to make sure that the investments the American people are making in our IT infrastructure are efficient, and they're accountable. There's better transparency into what workloads are performing and how can we improve those workloads and how can we perform the overall outcome for the American people. Network modernization is also a key component to this in order to make this a reality. We've got to have a 21st century network. So it's not as sexy as some would want to talk about, but it's really key. It's foundational. It's the foundation that we're building on. So jumping to the next slide real quick. Here we go. We want to be able to pivot the workforce towards moving to the cloud, so we've been working with USDA and the Human Resources Group, and we've been vetting these courses on AgLearn, on aglearn.skillport.com. If you're interested in Microsoft Azure or Amazon or Google or Salesforce or any other number of cloud activities, they're available for you to pivot towards these new technologies. So we're going to evolve with the infrastructure and make USDA the shining star that we know it is. And by going through data center consolidation and by modernizing the workforce, USDA is entering a very small cohort of federal agencies that have gotten down to a very small number of data centers. And it's another key indicator that we're making the right choices here at U.S. Department of Agriculture. And with that, I'll hand the microphone to Ed for a moment.
Well, I think that concludes our infrastructure optimization briefing, and so I'd like to thank you all very much. And I'd like to introduce Tacey Somerset and Brad Rounding. They're going to talk about cybersecurity initiatives. Before I do that, I just want to personally thank Tacey for her and her team's great work on the prototypes that they're doing for ATO acceleration. Being on the cloud side of the house and all the ATOs that we have to get in place before we can provide our services to the customers, that it just means a lot that you've taken that on and you're doing a great job.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate that. I don't like standing behind there. So thanks for the segue into the sexy work. We like that. Cybersecurity is the sexy work. That's the fun stuff, right? Hoorah! So thank you. I am Tacey Somerset. I'm the acting Chief Information Security Officer here at USDA. My partner in cyber defense and protection here is Brad Rounding. He is the acting Deputy Chief Information Security Officer as well as our Director of Cyber Operations. So, you know, a lot of folks are kind of wondering, why are we consolidating cybersecurity operations across USDA? Well, there's a few drivers. Some of those drivers are around Executive Order 13800, which increases cybersecurity defense and strengthens our infrastructure across the United States and our territories. That's one of the drivers. The other driver is economy of scale, right? So we have multiple operation centers throughout all of USDA. We have multiple belly buttons to go push on. So the Department of Homeland Security, along with Office of Management and Budget, OMB, have decided that it's best for all departments across the federal government to consolidate. So what we're doing is we're working on that consolidation effort. So we can leverage things like what Ed just mentioned, being able to streamline processes like ATOs, mature our program here at USDA from a defense protection perspective. But we can't do it without some of our staff. We have key players that are part of this effort as we go through and consolidate. Some key players are Doug Perry. Doug, could you please stand up? As Ed mentioned, we have streamlined our process for our ATOs. We have actually gone from 6 to 8 months to get ATOs, which is our authority to operate. We've gone from that down to about 90 days in our pilots, so that are huge wins. And thank you for GSA partners that are helping us get there. As well as Martin Kahiko, he is actually out on leave right now, but we appreciate all of his efforts in this as well. We've got some other key players. We've got Carl Hill, who's out in Kansas City land somewhere, along with Pat Beagle. We've got Tracy Haskins, who's been very instrumental in helping us get there as well as Alani Sullivan, who's helping us mature our program through closing out some audit recommendations. So there's a number of things that are going on. But right now, I'm going to hand this over to Brad Rounding, who is, again, our SOC director, and will walk us through what it is we're doing here for our consolidation. So thank you.
Thank you, Tacey. So Tacey really nailed it on the head. Cyber is a booming industry. Fun fact, there is a 0% unemployment rate in cybersecurity, and I believe there's something like 200,000 jobs that are not filled right now in the cyber world, so it's tough to actually get good talent and retain that talent. So every time you get somebody, you're robbing someone else of that body because there isn't a pool of unemployed individuals with these skill sets. The thing about cyber is it touches everything. Every COE you've heard in here, every IT modernization effort you've heard about, cyber touches that. Everything from mobility to cloud to Internet of Things, virtualization, edge computing, all the latest innovations cyber has to be aware of and on top of, because you want to enable the business to be able to embrace those technologies and not just be the office of no, you're not going to do that, no, it's not safe. Every corporation and every government entity deals with risk, and what we're trying to do is shape the program for cybersecurity in the future to be more, I wouldn't say risk acceptance, but understand those risks, figure out how to embrace them with the business and mitigate the risk down to a tolerable level. So what we're doing is we're going to be building with this consolidation effort the next generation cybersecurity operations center. Sorry, we are on next steps. Okay. I just wanted to make sure where we were with the slides. And this is a challenge, and that's why we're going to be reaching out to the mission areas. We've already got representation from all the mission areas on this project. Because we don't want to build this in a vacuum. This takes a significant effort to build a next generation security operations center by consolidating infrastructure, technology, people, licenses, acquisitions, all around cyber to a central location in the department. This goes back to what Dan was talking about, where scales of economy are real. One time I think we wrote a small white paper around the life of a packet at USDA, right, a network packet, and how many sensors it goes through operated by different people. For example, the ASOC has sensors, the Client Experience Center has sensors, DHS has sensors, AT&T has sensors. So a single packet going out to the internet goes through all of these, and it's 4 different teams all looking at things differently. By centralizing and consolidating those, we gain the scales of economy, we gain the talent into a central pool where we can retain and retrain that staff instead of it being in 4 dispersed groups. I want to echo back to striking the balance. As we've probably shared with the community, one of the recent IT audits from OIG was around misuse. And it presents a lot of challenges, and it can't just be, well, no, we're not going to do that. It's got to be, well, how do we get to yes while managing the risk to a tolerable level that lets the business do the things it needs to do? So we're looking for, can we go to the next slide? Yes. So we're looking for engagement from the mission areas. We know the skill sets that we need to do this work, everything from cyber work, human capital planning work, IT procurement work. Within the IT world itself, we're looking for people that know how to problem solve. That's a lot of what cyber is solving puzzles and problems, because the threat landscape changes all the time. The adversary finds a new way to get into your ecosystem. Assuming he's already here, how do you find him? That's threat hunt operations. What does data look like? We're doing a lot of data modeling. Our big data engineers are actually writing machine learning algorithms to determine whether or not activity is machine generated versus human generated. Because I know our adversaries leverage through their tactics a lot of machine generated content, machine generated domain names. Our machine learning systems can know how to detect that was not a real URL that someone clicked on, a web link, that email you just got, these phishing campaigns that, trying to generate the awareness that don't click on that link, because most of the time it's probably not safe. So we want to leverage the skill sets from the community. We know there are data scientists, we know that there are people that can think creatively how to solve problems. We want that skill set brought into the department for this effort. So we'll be reaching out. If you're interested, reach out to us. We're in the GAL, Brad Rounding, Tacey Somerset, or reach out to any of the COE leads if you need to get a hold of us. We'd be happy to have you join our efforts. Thank you. Up next, I want to introduce Frank Heppel, Acting Associate CIO for the Client Experience Center.
Nice job. Good job. All right.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? You guys have been sitting a while. Roger that. So I will be as entertaining as possible. So this effort, the End User Consolidation Initiative, which is something that will touch every single person, not just in this room, but who wears a USDA badge. So it's obviously important. It obviously has your interest. One of the things I wanted to try to do in this presentation is capture the ethos of the effort in addition to the technical aspects, which is why you see here redefining we. It is critical for us to understand how this project will change the way that we interface with each other. And to break it down, it comes down to two things. You're a direct participant or you're a partner. If you're a direct participant, you and me and the rest of us who do that yeoman's effort of supporting the end user every day are going to make the Client Experience Center a better organization, full stop. If you're a partner, you work in those areas, wide area networks, security, application development, policy, procurement, that help end user exist, much less thrive. So this does apply to everyone, and we are incredibly aware of that. So how are we going to do this? How in the name of Elvis's spangly cape are we going to pull this off? Next slide, please. We have two goals. The consolidation element is the first of a two-step process. Consolidation is simply this. We're going to look on standardization of support elements. We're going to look at how we handle tickets and fixing printers and all of those things that are part and parcel of the end user support experience. We will be making some choices based on practicality. And that is because we have a fairly aggressive timeline that the Secretary has asked us to commit to. So in those areas where we have to commit to a tool because there are more users in it than others, we will make that call. But I can tell you, and we have learned this already, and we will continue to do this, in every instance where there is a mission area requirement, a unique function, we will acknowledge it, and we will figure out a way to support it. Second, the modernization piece, otherwise known as the fun part. Once we are a more cohesive unit, once we can leverage the power of all 90,000 of us, then we can look at exploring next generation tools and processes and procedures. And this is where your excellence comes into play. You are already doing everything we're talking about. In some cases, you may have thought of a really, truly excellent way of doing things. It is our job to take that information, apply it, and process it, and put it into place whenever we can. Strategic sourcing is another element where we're looking to combine and purchase as effectively as possible. We have one agreement rather than 17, especially for the same tool, for the same process, for the same service. Let's combine that. Let's consolidate that. Let's save some money while not impacting service adversely. Next slide, please. The most important element is you, as I said before. I realize you might be sensing a trend at this point, but it can't be reinforced strongly enough. In our process, so far we have 3 organizations that are midway through the process. We have learned from each and every one of them. Our executive sponsor, Janet Stevens, who's the CIO for FSIS, her contributions have been invaluable. We have learned from how her organization does business. We've taken advantage of contracts that they have leveraged, all to our benefit. And we are applying those lessons learned as we move forward through the iterative process that we are undertaking. As I said, we have 3 organizations in process. As they complete, we will move to the next organization mission area within the schedule and move until we complete. As we handle each of these initiatives, there's a 5-step process that we go through. Key amongst those, the discovery process. It is critical for us, you and my organization and yours, to ensure that we are asking all the relevant questions, that we're gathering all the appropriate data, that we are ensuring that we are covering every base. Without that, we run into difficulties, as you all well know. All the phases are truly collaborative. I know we had many questions about, well, what's the plan? Well, we have a truly collaborative process to develop the transition plan for each of the organizations. It's a little more complicated. It takes a little bit longer. The conversations are certainly dynamic, but the end result is we have a process that both organizations have bought into, both organizations can commit to, and we can embrace and support it. It has proven to be an excellent way to do business. Lastly, and I know I'm reinforcing this again, but I have had this conversation with my staff. We look at this as our moonshot. This is our interstate highway system. This is simply put, the most significant project we will probably undertake in our professional careers. Does it cause consternation? Does it cause concern? Absolutely. I will tell you, my staff is thinking the same thing. I've been asked and answered the same questions, whether I'm talking to CEC, AMS, RMA, and it's this: do I have a place? Do I have a role? Will my contributions be recognized, supported, and encouraged? Yes. Yes, they will. I need you. I need all of you. Can't do it without you, and I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else. I truly believe that this group of people are going to pull this off and are going to be the touchstone for other organizations to look at this kind of work. And I believe it because I've seen it. And I can't wait for it to continue. So thank you very much.
So thank you to all the leads and folks working on the Centers of Excellence and the IT modernization. So we're going to do next. Before I go into the next one, I do also want to recognize another detail lead, Morris Johnson from AMS, working on IT Infrastructure Optimization Center of Excellence. So now we're going to transition to a more interactive part of our agenda. And on this, I'm going to ask several of our key leaders within USDA that are helping us in all of these efforts of IT modernization. We start with Janet Stevens, the Assistant CIO for Food Safety, Mia Jordan, the Assistant CIO for Rural Development, Don Motter, Assistant CIO for the Natural Resource and Environment, Frank Heppel, the Acting Associate CIO for Client Experience Center, and Doug Nash, the Assistant CIO for Marketing Regulatory Programs. So please on stage, and we'll have a seat. What we'll do is I have a couple questions that I'll be asking the team, and we'll kind of go over. This is based on some of the questions that we received, and we'll also have an interact session into the rest of our program where you have the chance both here in person and online to ask questions that we'll have responses for you as well. So with that, please welcome me on stage. Okay, I'll get started now. So the first question, this is for the whole team, so you guys feel free to answer it. What do you, in your view, see as the biggest opportunities from where you sit to achieve better program outcomes through IT modernization across USDA and in your particular mission area or program?
So, can you hear me? Great. I'll start. So I'm Doug Nash. So I think one of the big opportunities from a mission perspective with the IT consolidation is around making the IT investments mission focused, that everything we're doing right now is to help improve how we're delivering services within the mission area, and that we're doing it in a more integrated fashion. We're looking at how to create a common customer experience over various systems that we have, and I think also just gaining a lot of the efficiencies by bringing, for example, IT staff together where we're eliminating redundancies.
In terms of IT modernization and looking across USDA, one of the things in my particular area in regards to rural development is that we're essentially a bank, right? We give loans specifically to rural America in regards to business, homes, as well as utilities and community facilities. And with that, I think that it's paramount as we kind of forge this new path down this IT modernization road that we look to industry. We look at what industry, what problems industry has solved. We look at what has worked well in industry and what hasn't. And those are the opportunities I think that we can bring into the federal government, specifically when the comment earlier was made as to how do we ensure that through IT modernization that the American citizens' experience with the federal government is no different than a private business, right? No different than Verizon, no different than going to your local bank. And I think those are the things that we should be thinking about each and every day in regards to the decisions we make.
I think for us in food safety, I can look around at each of you and I can tell you there's one thing we all have in common. We all eat. So the backbone of our organization is our field force. So we have a lot of operational challenges and things we have to overcome, especially telecom and making sure we have innovative products for our field force. But in transitioning and transforming into IT modernization, in addition to making sure we have what our field force needs to work, I'm looking forward to expanding in areas and spending more time on customer experience and making sure that we provide the technologies, the applications, the tools in an innovative way to allow that workforce to do their work in a way that allows them to do things in more real time. And to get that data collected more quickly and back into the systems and tools to make sure we hold accountable and produce the safest food in the world. So for me, it really is around getting a transition out of operations and into more of the customer focus.
Good morning, folks. Don Motter, Acting Assistant CIO for NRE. And I was thinking a little bit about this question, and I fell back to a couple leader stance that the Forest Service embraces, and I think it applies to IT modernization, and that's seeing opportunity. So basically seeing opportunity is having a vision and envisioning what the organization can be so much as what it can do. So having that forward vision really ties into IT modernization, as well as what we call a stewarding the whole. And that's encouraging people to be more than what they have in their circle or in their hands on a day-to-day basis, and really holding something much bigger than themselves. And so I really see stewarding the whole as a leadership challenge, but also an opportunity for us, as well as seeing these opportunities that not only are approaches in this upcoming FY, but also think about what we're doing for 3, 5, 7 years from now. So people get caught a little bit in the, well, what's in it for me right now or next year? Think about the influence you're going to have in 2 to 3, 5 years. What sort of leadership talent are you going to attract? What sort of succession planning are you envisioning? Because it's more than just the wires and boxes and the applications in the cloud. It's really about the people, and it's about the mission that we enable day in and day out.
I'm Frank. We met earlier. long story short, of course, I'm agreeing with my colleagues here, and I guess I would just add excitement, as I talked about earlier, but I think it bears repeating. The things I have learned in the last 3 months about how different organizations operate, what their mission-critical systems are, how they operate, what their requirements are in terms of reporting to Congress or delivering to the American people. It is fascinating to see the depth and breadth of the activities that not only the USDA does, but that we are responsible for enabling. I look very much forward in the coming months and years to understanding USDA better and then in turn being able to help better support it.
Thank you, Brawler. So this is another open question. So the question is, with change comes opportunity. So with the scope of IT modernization happening across USDA, what do you see from where you sit as some of the biggest career development opportunities for IT employees across USDA? Long question. And whether rescaling or engaging with these efforts.
I think from the end user perspective, there is a tremendous opportunity for individuals as we consolidate and standardize the environment, the ability for technicians to move, grow, change, whether the organization they support, the system they support, even something as simple as a location change, is something that can be facilitated. Longer term, as we look at what the next solution is going to be for the key elements with end user, getting people to participate in the review process, developing ideas. What's the innovation council look like for end user 2 years from now? And how will that function? How does that feed new ideas to not only the department as a whole, or perhaps generated from the mission areas themselves? I think those are two things that I think employee engagement will be really key for.
So I'm going to maybe pick up a little bit on my last theme, and that's the first thing I think I'm looking for, or as an organization we need, is more leaders. And so we need folks who are willing to step up. They might not be the most knowledgeable in a particular area, but are willing to take a leadership role and take responsibility too. Take on some risk, bring that into the organization, do a good assessment, and then present options to leadership so they can make sound decisions. Because remember, the folks we're advising are not technologists. We're to be the advisors for senior leaders to make strong and sound business decisions for this agencies, for all the agencies, for the mission areas and the department. So, but from also maybe a little bit of a technical point of view, I'll be looking for people with strong project and program management experience, folks who are willing to dive into DevOps, agile development, and maybe even looking at iterative or agile approach to contracting and acquisitions. And folks who aren't afraid to maybe dabble a little bit in what private industry sees as best practices, and folks who are willing to make a change and are willing to experience and also to fail, and to come back and say, hey, that didn't work, and it didn't work, and here's what we learned from it, and this is how we're going to improve the organization.
You know, I think the first thing is to acknowledge that this is a huge change for each one of you and for all of us. It's, you know, a lot of uncertainty. But with that, I also see tremendous opportunity. Somebody said earlier today, this is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, organizational changes we'll see in our careers. And with that kind of change is there's a place for everybody. There's career opportunities. There is tremendous, the opportunity to work with industry partners, the best of the best. Leading edge technologies, the fact that we have the secretary on down that has tremendous focus on IT modernization. And so I think there is so much available for every IT employee to participate and help make this successful. The opportunities there. And then also just to keep in mind that everything we're doing is not about optimizing IT ultimately. It's about IT, optimizing IT, improving IT as a means to an end to better serve the American public and serve USDA. But I think it's exciting times. It can probably be scary for some folks, but I think, they say carpe diem, seize the day and really look for ways that you can take advantage of this change.
I'll echo that. I think, again, the time that we're in, as each of the COEs got up and discussed and shared what they're working on and where they're headed, I see you all having a front row seat into deciding where do you want to go, ultimately. I think the choice is yours as you think about your future with USDA, your future in the federal government. The technology landscape is shifting so fast that this is a very optimal time, I think, for each and every one of you in these chairs, each and every one of you that we're streaming to really think about where do you want to be in the next 24 months? Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? Because there are so many opportunities that are literally at your fingertips to just grab onto. I don't know in my 3 years in IT, because I'm only 21, that I've ever seen, I made myself laugh. I don't know that I've ever seen an opportunity like this where there's an organization literally turning the ship in a very different direction as it relates to information technology, and an organization that is literally laying the groundwork for so many of us to, I guess, be at the forefront of that. It's not necessarily being on the bleeding edge of technology, but it's really being able to learn this technology and learn how to advance the mission. And so with that, I encourage you to stay in contact with the people who are next to you in these seats. I encourage you to reach out to the leaders that are here on this stage, the leaders that are in the CIO office, and constantly bother them about opportunities. You really have to. Only you can decide what your future will be.
I'm 22. Just kidding. I'll present maybe the other side of the case. I've been in for 27 years. But I do echo what everybody says here. I mean, I think in IT, at some point you hit a point in your career where you're thinking, where am I going? Am I going into management or leadership? Am I going to stay really technical? But I do think right now is the time. It's the time to figure out where you want your career to go. I, too, have never seen anything like this in my 27 years where it's got a path, it's got support, it's got leadership support up and down. And what that means to you as IT folks and folks who work in IT is you really are choosing your path forward now, and there is so much more opportunity to do so many wonderful things for the mission for where you work. So what is your passion? Don't be scared to get into supervisory. We need you. Don't be afraid to go into leadership. We need you. This country needs you to get into leadership. You know what businesses need. You know what your customers need. You know what it feels like to be on the bad side of bad customer service. Every one of you knows. So you know what it takes to provide that service to our customers, to get the mission done. But I do think that now is that time for you to do that. I mean, whether you want to be a business analyst, project management, we've talked a lot about DevOps, DevSecOps, you're solving problems. IT people solve problems every day, all day long. Sometimes you can't sleep at night because you're still solving problems. But, now is that time to do that. And speak to people, speak up, think about your career path. But we need you to analyze, we need you to drive things forward. We can't do it alone, and we're going to be gone at some point, and you're still going to be here. And you're what's important to the future of this organization, where you're sitting here, whether you're dialed in, whether you're watching us now. But I absolutely echo everything here. But the analysis and knowing what the customers and business need is what's driving us forward. And be a pest. Be a pest. You own your career path. I wouldn't be here now if I stayed in the first organization I was at. And I'm really happy that I left, not because it was bad, it was a good choice. Someone else fills in behind you. Every one of us up here, someone's going to fill in behind us. Everyone out there, someone's going to fill in behind you. We're passing a baton. But look at the important opportunity you have right now to drive it forward together.
Thank you. Very insightful from each of you. On this next question, let me start with Frank on the Client Experience Center. So I'll start with Frank, but I'd definitely like to open it up to everybody on the panel because everybody has their own perspective that they will provide. So on this one is, how do you see the IT end user consolidation effort creating efficiencies and improved service across USDA? Two-part question. Second part is, what information can you provide to potentially affected employees about what this means for them.
Thanks, boss. Yeah. So the first one, I spoke to it a little bit earlier, but it does deserve going into greater detail. And this also ties into the learning experience that we have gone through. There are organizations that are doing really, really interesting things. Some out of necessity, some because they have a particular skill set, some because their mission area requires that. And leveraging learning how that process is being done and leveraging that across the rest of the department is something I think we can certainly facilitate. The modernization piece that we talked about with the consolidation effort is something that is truly valuable. More specifically, had conversations about how to better leverage virtual desktops, how to look at managed print services, how to better incorporate cybersecurity framework into how we do any and all initiatives. The idea of leveraging cloud and being able to have the desktop truly be as much of an endpoint as back in the mainframe days. All of those things are things that are being discussed, and that's just scratching the surface. Other technologies, the Forest Service with radio frequencies and radio equipment, it's a plethora. It's almost an embarrassment of riches. So I guess it's hard to say what are the specific opportunities. It's everything. And I guess the key component to that is during the exploration and as folks are looking to do different things, we need to be more cognizant of what that research and what that recommendation means across the department as a whole. As I've told my folks, I don't think there's such a thing as a non-enterprise initiative anymore. That kind of the inclusion of the scope of all the requirements is something that I think we have to consider from that. Does it work for 95,000 as opposed to the 1,000? That's the way I'm looking at the first part of that question. The second part is I would say to echo what has been said previously, but also just to simply consider from the end user perspective, the folks that are currently doing that work in the mission areas, to say again, your service is valuable, your knowledge is critical, the efforts you put into what you do every day need to be captured, need to be understood, need to be embraced, need to be solved for in cases, but there is certainly opportunity for every single person to look at what they're currently doing, whether they want to continue to do that, whether they want to branch out and change, and whether it's moving locations or changing what they're responsible for, embracing management. Again, it's an embarrassment of riches. I think the hard part is going to be ensuring that we are coordinating and communicating not only the intent and as we move this project forward, but coordinating with missionary leadership, CIO leadership, so that we're all communicating well and we're tracking what the progress is, we understand what new initiatives are and how they're being put forward. That's really, communication is the key. I hope I answered that question. It was a long one.
I think you did.
Oh, thank you.
Does anybody else on the panel have any?
So I'll just add a little bit. I've asked my leadership in the organization to look at our land mobile radio program and see if we could take some of the best practices, and leverage some of the key themes from USDA IT modernization and apply it to the radio program. Because USDA as a department manages the largest civilian land mobile radio program in all of federal government, and we're probably second only to DOD. We have thousands of sites, pieces of equipment. We have tens of thousands of pieces of equipment that hang from belts or are loaded in rigs throughout the field. and it's a critical piece in fire operations and emergent operations in any sort of emergency situation. So I've asked them to say, you know, change the model. What can we look at? How can we take what we're doing across the board within the department, and is it possible that we can relook at the land mobile radio program to make it more efficient? And then also then how can we reach out to our interagency partners, specifically Bureau of Land Management at DOI, and how do we assist them in the interagency community? So just trying to leverage those key themes to help another area that sometimes is not really forgotten and is actually part of the IT portfolio. Thanks.
So the consolidation of end-user services across the department, I think everybody knows is tricky and complicated and probably scares some people and also has huge payoff. One of the first impressions that our customers have of IT and how effective we are is end-user services. And if we do it well, it goes well, or folks remember it. If we don't do it well, people have really long memories. And so I think everybody in here has done some kind of help desk work one way or the other, and we got to get it right. I firmly believe we're on the right track to do it. CEC and OCIO have a long history of providing excellent customer service. They're supporting, I don't know, 60,000 plus. But even at that scale, things, we got to anticipate that things could potentially go wrong. I think one of the key things is we consolidate help desk services. We've got to be even more hyper-focused on understanding the customer, understanding the particular mission areas we're supporting, and having the customer feel like they're dealing with somebody that knows the specific mission of rural development or FSIS or Forest Service. If they call the help desk and it's some generic response and they don't understand that in summer Forest Service is fighting fires, then that's a problem. So we got to get it right. I do think we're on the right track, but this is so critical, ensuring that as we consolidate, it still feels like it's local. It still feels like those that we understand the customer. As far as employees that are moving over to CEC for help desk services, that also I know can pose some uncertainty. But I think there's tremendous opportunity, and it's a matter of really, I know with an MRP what we're doing is being very transparent about what the transition looks like, having folks involved, and also Frank and Francisco, some others have come over and talked with our staff to help explain what it means, what the culture of CEC is like. So big transition, but I do think that we'll get it done.
Okay, so we're transitioning now to the interactive part of our program. So with that, we're going to open the mics for folks here in the room, can ask questions, and for those online can submit their questions as well, and we'll read them out and respond to them accordingly. So we'll first start with folks online, and then we'll transition to the room, and we'll kind of go back and forth. So do you have any questions online?
We do. So first question relates to, I think, the last conversation, do a little bit of myth busting. Will all IT work, job series, et cetera, fall under the CIO? Example, app developers not managed by CIO or 2210s who work outside of CIO?
So I'll go ahead and actually start with that one, right? And then I'll pass it on to the panel. So all 2210s, and we actually had several similar questions throughout that was provided or submitted. So all 2210s won't necessarily be reporting directly to OCIO. Right now, as we talked about the end user consolidation, that is an area that we're looking at as appropriate. There would be transition into OCIO, right? But the application side, that is the assistant mission area assistant CIO's responsibility. And so we work very closely, hand in hand, making sure that we are one USDA. But to answer that question directly, not all 2210s will report directly to the CIO, but we are one USDA. Any additional from the panel? Okay, in the room. I know some of you are not shy. So, all right, do you have another one online?
We do. This is one I can ask and answer. what is the technology behind the CXO dashboards? So yeah, let's go into a little bit of detail there. I mentioned we started with the business requirements. A lot of that data really is structured data when we're talking about the administrative functions. But as we were designing the solution for analytics of the department at the enterprise level, we wanted to make sure that we both captured the requirements for today, but also going forward in the future. So the environment we're creating is a Hadoop Cloudera environment where we'll be building connections between all of the underlying systems at USDA, the systems of record, to be able to create the real-time or business requirement updates in that system. That's also going to enable us to, in FY19, pivot to looking at other applications and working with program areas on their programmatic data, unstructured data, those kinds of things. So we want to look at advanced analytics, predictive modeling, and we're going to continue to work with the mission areas over the course of FY19. So hopefully that gives you a little more detail. Okay. When will we see modernization in the speed of the network?
Say it again.
When will we see modernization in the speed of the network?
So, actually, I've got Mr. John Donovan over there shaking his head. That is actually one of the big efforts we're doing in IT modernization is the enterprise network. For those of you that in that area know EIS and Networks 2020 contract, that is definitely part of what we're doing to make sure that we enhance our current network, and we're also looking to consolidate. So right now we have 17 networks throughout USDA. So we're looking to get down to maybe a dozen, and the reason I say maybe because we have to look at the requirements, we look at the needs, the impact that we have on a network and the systems we have there. So we will see modernization in that side of the effort, but is very much aligned to the EIS contract that we're working with. Anything else to add, John? Get the thumbs up.
Okay. A few questions on telework, so maybe we just want to go into the sort of telework policy question. Can't read them all.
Just see if we can summarize it. Probably not.
Basically a question about the telework policy, what changes we might see in the future, how it's consistent with the work-life balance. Those kind of questions are coming in.
I'm pausing. I'm taking a little time here because it is a touchy subject. But know that this is policy set forth. The Secretary is very much looking us to have good customer experience, right? And so from that side of things, telework is a good tool. So I'm not going to make any bones about that. Sometimes we do have need for telework. But if your job is basically to work in front of a person, be it at somebody's desk, we can't do that remotely. Not in today's technology until holograms and everything comes into fruition. We're not there yet. So pretty much we are in support of that policy, but also understanding that there are times, whether you're doing for medical accommodations or anything like that, those don't go away. So I know some of the worry is that going to go away because I have an accommodation? No longer because of the policy. No, keep in mind that's different. But as far as the telework policy as it stands today, we are supportive of that. We will leverage that. That's what the Secretary is looking for to make sure that we provide the best customer experience for our users.
So we'll actually get to go to a question that came in advance of the meeting. We had a lot of questions come in from staff through the feedback mailbox. This is, I think, related, sort of the other side of the coin of that question about consolidation of 2210s. My employees and I are in the, quote, shadow organization. We are 2210s that do not work for the CO, but rather for the regional fire director, so it's a Forest Service question. The program is specific to regional fire, dispatch, and training support. I've heard some talk concerning an interest in bringing all 2210s under the umbrella of the CIO. Is this the case?
Wow, not easy questions. So we're not going to avoid those hard questions. But keep in mind that 2210s, the CIO for each department is responsible for IT, responsible for answering the technology, the fiduciary responsibility that goes along with it. And so within USDA, we're looking to make sure that we have that ability through the CIO and as well through the missionary assistant CIOs. So we are looking to make sure that we are in compliance with all the regulations, whether it's FTARA, whether it's the Clear Cone Act, because that doesn't go away, right? FTAR is just an addition to it, to help it, strengthen it. And all these other needs that we have to basically meet OMB, GAO, all the guidance, all the recommendations. And so we are definitely looking to make sure 2210s are reporting up the correct chain that includes the missionary assistant CIOs and in areas such as consolidation for end users into OCIO.
Question about,
Mr. Alvarado.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. So when you're talking, this is a strategic human capital question, and we're talking about succession planning and the ability for the agency, in this case the Forest Service, to meet the national priorities that Chief and the Deputy Undersecretary outlined to the Secretary. And it ties directly to Strategic Goal 1 and Strategic Goal 6 of the USDA set of strategic goals. So a decision like that isn't something that's going to be made in a vacuum by myself or a couple of other folks. That's going to be brought, it's going to be in a collaborative environment, and it's going to be brought to the executive leadership team at the Forest Service. So I would say for folks, and I know there's a lot of angst, anxiety, and maybe a little bit of, a little bit of anger over what's next. What I've told folks is that there's a very broad spectrum of which we operate. It could be status quo, it could be complete consolidation, it could be all sorts of variations in between. Right now, we do need to stay focused on the mission that we have to accomplish, the services we have to provide. And when that discussion does arise, then we'll have it in a collaborative manner. We will bring it up for executive decision making and determine what is the right model for the NRE mission area, and to include if what the decision by the Deputy Undersecretary is for the services we have to provide, whether it's enterprise services for the entire department or it's services that were limited to our particular mission area. Thanks.
Thank you, Don.
okay, we can move on to a question about tools and technologies. So getting all USDA under one customer help desk would be a good start. Will the USDA continue to use its existing Tier 1 contract, or we continue to use Remedy or some other incident management system?
Yeah, that's me. Are we going to continue to use an ITSM system to facilitate help desk tickets and tracking of services? Absolutely. Which one is that going to be? For the short term, most of the consolidation we're going to do is going to be in the Remedy platform for one very simple reason, is that between the instances that CEC and DISC and the Consolidated Help Desk contract have, we have just about everybody in the department in a record within one of those systems. Is that the system we are going to tie ourselves into for the next 5 to 10 years? No. There's been a lot of excellent work done in other platforms that that a number of different organizations have been anxious to present, and they are really, really interesting. And we're going to try to see what we can do to make sure that we don't lose that functionality in the process. So platform integration is a huge concept and something we are working on diligently, and we've already got some answers as to how we can do that. So really, where it makes sense, are we going to consolidate? Absolutely. Where it makes sense to allow a certain platform to continue to support a particular organization or area, that makes sense, then we'll look at that too. Eventually, the next generation of ITSM, that platform, we would like to consolidate as much as possible into that single tool for a wide variety of reasons, to include how we do data calls, how we provide reports for the dashboard, how we report to senior management, to Congress, et cetera. Makes sense if that data, it lives in a single instance.
We have a good question that dovetails on the conversation about opportunities for employees. So we heard a lot about opportunities for leadership within USDA related to IT modernization. What are the path for those seeking to move from technical expert to leadership and management? Where are those opportunities? And this may be a question for multiple people to participate in.
I think that's a great question, because I do think and firmly believe that your career path is your own. You own that, and you should look for those opportunities. One we've worked on and worked with the department on is the IT Fellows Program. I think that's an excellent opportunity. It's something that's been going on now several years here, and we tend to have someone either in there or receive someone from there, but it gives you the unique opportunity to work outside of your mission area or your agency and get exposure in leading projects or leading teams, that you can take that back and qualify for those positions you want to qualify for. So I definitely think as you see things that are advertised, ask for those opportunities, but look for the ones that the department also provides, that are provided for within your areas, whether it's shadowing opportunities, getting a mentor. I'm a mentor of several folks, and I highly encourage it for anyone, or to be a mentor or a mentee. But look at the opportunities you have. But the IT Fellows for us has been a great one to have folks invest in.
I would agree. In addition to that, I will also give a shameless plug to AgLearn, that there's an actual leadership certificate that you can go through the courses within AgLearn to sharpen and refine your skills, in addition to mentor programs and so forth. And I'll offer one additional shameless plug. RD is hiring.
We all are. Yeah. So just to add to those comments, so in MRP, one of the things that we're getting ready to do is a skills assessment across all of our IT staff to see where we have the strengths, where we have the gaps, looking at where we are and where we're headed in the department with cloud, with customer experience, with SaaS, with enhanced project management. All those areas are where the growth opportunities are. So one is to see where are we headed, what kinds of skills do each of you have versus we have as an organization. We're committing from a leadership perspective to invest in employees. And then the other thing, the great thing about bringing IT staff together from both program area and the traditional CIO enterprise area, excuse me, is there's, I think, more career promotion opportunities, a larger community of practice, folks you can learn from or you can share your expertise with, and I think a more definitive career path in addition to the leadership training and other things.
So I'd also offer up that you look at detail opportunities, both inside and outside of IT. So don't be afraid of maybe taking a detail opportunity briefly and very briefly, 120 days, no more, and then come back to your IT organization. But look at opportunities where you can learn about the business practices. Look at areas, maybe there's some program areas where IT and business blend together very well, and you can learn from that and get those best practices and also share those best practices. And so you can come back as a stronger leader. And I say that not only just for folks in NRE, but folks who are in other mission areas to come over to NRE and look at detail opportunities. Throw your name in the hat. I had two very great employees who applied and were accepted to the COEs, and they're being challenged, but I think I can say they're both having an incredible opportunity. And so they took a step, and they took it, said, well, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I'll go ahead and put my name in the hat. And if I get selected, hey, great, because when they come back, they're still coming back to USDA in general. They're coming back to Forest Service NRE. And so what we're trying to do is trying to develop leaders and visionaries who are going to stay in USDA, who are going to stay and they're going to cross-pollinate. So it's not 9 separate mission areas now, but it's still one USDA with 9 focus areas. And we've got leaders that have moved across the organization because that makes the entire organization stronger.
Just echoing what everybody else says, but also remember that leadership is an activity. It's not just a position. I am fortunate to work with folks who routinely go outside the boundaries of their particular position in order to help challenge the status quo, as you say, find a new and better mousetrap, etc. And I think if you are in a supervisory position, make sure you take the time to listen to those ideas and spend the 20 minutes to hear what they have to say.
And I hope that on the other side of the coin, if you have these ideas, instead of going, they won't listen, try it. And even if you don't maybe necessarily hear it right the first time, or you get a response the first time, ask again, ask someone different. Challenge the status quo and embrace the leadership as an activity.
Thank you. Appreciate the insight and all the information provided by the panelists and plugs, obviously. So with that, I'd like to give them a round of applause. Thank you, everyone. So just for everyone's information, before I hand it back off to Gary Washington, our CIO, I do want to make sure everybody knows that the recording and the slides information will be available after the presentation. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Mr. Washington.
So just to let you know that the USDA CIO makes mistakes, I want to apologize. I should have recognized Morris earlier. He is a valued member of our Center of Excellence team. He's on the just wanted to make sure I did that. Before I close, just want to make sure everybody understands what USDA is trying to do. Never before has a modernization like this been attempted or successfully completed at a large department like USDA. So I just want to make sure that all of you understand that you're part of something new, and we're being watched very closely. In addition to that, our Deputy Secretary is the President Management Agenda Goal Leader for IT modernization. So what that means is USDA is the leader for that across the federal government. So I wanted to let you know that also. In addition to that, what we're doing with digital analytics is a trailblazing activity across the federal government, and we've done such a good job that Ted has been asked to come to other agencies to show them what USDA is doing with these dashboards and with data. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody in here understands that you are part of and can continue to be a part of something that's unique and important across the federal government. So in closing, I want to thank everybody for attending, the IT modernization teams for the excellent information that was presented today, and to our panel for answering the questions. I want to thank the assistant CIOs. The teams have been working hard to ensure that USDA earns its lighthouse agency reputation for IT modernization, but this event could not happen on its own. So I want to thank Pam Hurd for spearheading this. I want to thank Cynthia Campbell Greenwich and Jane Davis for their outstanding support. I want to thank the Office of Communication for streaming this live. We have people from Hawaii and Alaska that have joined us and from across the country. So I want to thank OC for that. Ted Kaut and Talora Dean for making sure that everything has been organized properly, and we had outstanding presentations today. I want to address the questions in the feedback mailbox. And, I know we didn't get to answer every single question, but we will respond to those questions as soon as possible. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to propose questions, and we'll answer them as accurately as we can. We can do anything that we want to do. Here at USDA, we have a very talented workforce. We have very talented IT leadership. I've been around for a while. I have never seen a secretary, deputy secretary, policy official leadership that is supportive, as intimately involved in what we do as we have now. So we have a unique opportunity for all of us to be successful and provide value to each one of our mission areas in our business. So as I said earlier, IT is one of the lifebloods in an organization. So when people work every day, they use something that you work on, that you support. So I think you need to recognize that and continue to give the outstanding level of customer support that you do on a daily basis. So we are moving to a more enterprise approach here at USDA. Everything that we do, we will, IT for the most part, we will do as a department. We will continue to collaborate and communicate and partner together and work from the same playbook. So with that, I want to thank you again for your attendance. We will do this periodically, and I hope everybody found this useful and informational, and you should give yourselves a round of applause and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Please make sure to police your areas, so any cops, trash you have, thank you.